Hi all, in this video I'm going to go over uh, a method that adds a filter that I made up to the picture tester class. You all have to do a couple of these and that is what you should be working on this week. Doing these is actually a really good start to reviewing for the AP exam because a lot of the material that is on the AP exam is the type of programming that you need to do to write these, to write a filter that does anything interesting with pictureLab. So if we're first going to go over one that I wrote called Blur3. This is in Picture Tester. We first load a JPEG called Mount Doom. We open it in an Explore window. Then I call Blur3 over in the picture class. And then I open it again after it's been modified. Okay, so let's go see what. Well, first I guess let's see what this does. So we'll compile this, and good. And now I can just call this directly, right? Blur3 because it's a static method. And what will happen is it will first open the picture. Oh, where's the Mount Doom picture? There it is. It's hidden behind there. Okay, we'll just move that down for now. So there's the Mount Doom picture. And what I did in this filter is I averaged the colors, the red, green, and blue values for all the pixels in a given column, right? And then reassigned all the pixels in that column to the average of those red, green, and blue values. So it's a lot of gray over here, so we get a gray stripe, right? Over here where Mount Doom is erupting, this area there's a lot of red and orange, so we get red and orange stripes here. Yeah, not terribly interesting, but it's pretty straightforward, so let's take a look at the code for this. Which is in picture. Okay, so here's Blur3, and let's go through this quickly. I make a, this is actually not needed, this is for something else. This is for Blur 2, I think, and I forgot to comment it out here. Okay, so here we do the standard, we do call of the picture class, we call the getPixels2D method, and that returns a two-dimensional array of pixels, called pixels, and I define a pixel object called a pixel. And to make things easier, I initialize the integer variable width to pixel sub 0.length, right? So that is the number of columns in the two-dimensional array. And then I say length equals pixels sub length. So that's the number of rows in the two-dimensional array. Remember, a two-dimensional array is an array of arrays. So pixel sub 0 gives me that first interior array, and then I can ask for the length of it. This pixels.length is the number of elements in the exterior array, right? Each element containing its own interior array, so to speak. Okay? So now the standard nested loop structure that you're almost always going to be using when dealing with two-dimensional arrays. In this case, I am moving across the columns in the outer loop because I want to go down through all the rows for each column. So I do that in the inside, right, before I move over to the next column. And inside this outer for loop, I initialize red, blue, and green to 0. And then inside the inner loop, I'm going down through all the rows. I pull out a pixel at a particular row and column, store it in a pixel, a reference to it. Then I get I get that pixel's red value and add it to red and sum up in red, right? And same thing for blue and green. So at the end of this loop, I've got the total number of I've added up all the red values, blue and green values, right? So then I divide by length, which is the number of rows, and for red, blue, and green to get the average. So now I've got the average color, or the average red, blue, and green values. And now I have a loop that simply goes back again, starting at the top. I could have started at the bottom. It totally doesn't matter. And assigns each pixel element, sets the color of each pixel object in that column to a new color, which is composed of the average of the red, the green, and the blue values. Okay? Now, just for fun, let's swap this so that it averages the rows and not the columns. So in that case, we'd want the rows to be on the outside because we want to go down through the rows. And then for each row, we want to go across through the columns. So all the columns on the first row, all the columns on the second row, etc. Don't need to change anything here. And then for here, we have to, since we're dealing with the columns, we'll just replace that with that, right? Because we're going to cross through the columns. And I think that's it. And let's see if that compiles. No problem. Cool. And we'll compile this, and we'll run Blur3 again. And, okay, perfect. So we've got, here's our original Mount Doom, and now we're averaging all the pixels in a particular row, right? So again, that flame at the top of Mount Doom is causing these set of rows to be orange tinted. And then these are various shades of gray. Okay? Again, not very interesting, but you know, it's a good exercise in using loops, and you can certainly come up with something more interesting using all those great math skills that you have to do something more interesting to the picture. Okay, that's it for this filter. We'll look at some others in other videos.